Good morning. I'm Kim Chappell. I'm the worship associate for today, and it's my very great pleasure to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Lancaster. Last Monday was the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade. Thursday was the Jewish New Year of the trees, known as Tu B'Shvat, and for some Buddhists, Thursday was the Mahayana New Year. Last Friday was the United Nations International Day to remember the Holocaust. This coming Thursday will be Imbolc, the ancient Celtic and Gaelic festival of the goddess Brigid. It marks the halfway point between the winter solstice and spring equinox and the coming of spring. In Christian times, the goddess Brigid evolved into Saint Bridget, and on February 2nd, Imbolc evolved into Candlemas, when all the candles are blessed in the church for use in the coming year. Also, it's a day to celebrate the Virgin Mary and the presentation of Jesus to the temple. At some point, February 2nd also became Groundhog Day. With February will come Black History and LGBTQ History Month. Here at UUCL, we come together to nourish the spirit, connect in love, and act for justice. We welcome you this morning just as you are. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, however you identify, today, you are part of this spiritual community. And if this is your first time here, may you soon discover that this is also your spiritual community. As has become our custom, let us give a special welcome to all those joining the service this morning on Zoom. I invite those on Zoom to turn on your cameras and wave back to us. And for us in the sanctuary, let's wave to those on Zoom. We welcome all ages in the sanctuary today. Our playroom in the adjoining building, in that direction, is open for children ages 4 years or younger, if parents would like to bring their children there. There is also a table with activities for busy hands of all ages in the Women's Memorial Room opposite me in the sanctuary. I invite everyone to take a moment to consider this sacred space that we are now in and acknowledge the truth of the land beneath and around us. We are gathered on land once inhabited by people known as the Susquehannock and the Conestoga, and ancient peoples before them. We acknowledge the violent legacies of genocide, displacement, and settlement that led us to our being here today, and remind ourselves to live humbly in relationship to this land and with all the indigenous peoples still living and loving on this continent. May we also acknowledge that the wealth and foundation of the United States was built upon the labor and toil of enslaved people. Many indigenous people will say, all are relatives. May we live into this truth and aspiration together. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our minister, the Reverend Patricia Guthmann Haresch.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Oh, that was good on an icky, rainy day. It was wonderful to come into the beautiful music, cello and flute. I think I've shared with Alicia before that I played flute all throughout school, and when my dad was alive and I'd call home as an adult, he'd say, do you ever pick up your flute for all the flute lessons I paid for? And I always I'm so amazed because whenever I had to play flute in public, I couldn't control my breath and my fingers would shake. So I'm always impressed. Thank you for your gifts. This morning, the title of the sermon and the theme is 5 Smooth Stones of Unitarian Universalism or liberal religion. And it's based on a really important essay from a Unitarian Universalist theologian last century. And Heather, who's preparing to go to the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, said she saw a reference to the 5 smooth stones when you're preparing to be a UU minister, yes. So a very big deal. And I'm going to, for this chalice lighting, as we enter into our service this morning, these are words from a 1968 lecture. And this lecture was before all the seminaries in the Boston Theological Institute, so very important. Harvard Divinity, Andover Newton, Boston, and so many people got to hear this particular lecture. It was a different one than his 5 Smooth Stones. And I say it because it still amazes me that it was said in 1968. And this actually, in full, is number 591 in the Gray Hymnal. He says, I call that church free. It's James Luther Adams. We all called him JLA for short. So if I say JLA, I'm sorry. It's James Luther Adams. I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom. It is open to insight and conscience from every source. You know what I'm realizing? It's the other reading I'm going to do today that I was amazed was 1968. So never mind about what I said about that. Let's go back to the frame of mind, which these words are good no matter what year you say them, for good reasons. So let's go back. I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship that protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom. It is open to insight and conscience from every source. It bursts through rigid tradition, giving rise to new and living language, to new and broader fellowship. It is a church on an adventure of the Spirit. I'm going to say that again because I really think that's what we as UUs could be, can be, should be. To bring to a new and broader fellowship. It is a church on an adventure of the Spirit. It aims to find unity in diversity under the promptings of the Spirit that bloweth where it listeth and maketh all things new. May we come together and feel like we're making all things new again. And let us sing together, Blessed Spirit of My Life, number 86 in our Gray Hymnal.
I would like to note that you may notice our folks coming up to the front. A new habit I have learned amidst my last 2 weeks of COVID is that this is congregational singing. So for anyone in the future who would like to sing up here with us, this is not a choir requirement, but 9 a.m.s every Sunday. You can learn the hymns with me and Alan in the morning and sing up with your congregation together. So let's sing together number 86. Alan will play it through once first.
anybody, again, you can come on up and sing, and now you can come on up for a story if you'd like. Anyone who's a child in spirit or, oh, I got some, or an age can come on up. We're going to sit here because in a minute the choir's going to come up behind me. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, good to see you. Now, I'm going to tell a story today, and it actually relates to the 5 smooth stones I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. And I wonder, have you ever heard the story about David and Goliath? Do you know about David and Goliath? That David was actually like, we think maybe 12, maybe 15. He was young, and he actually killed a giant named Goliath. That's the story I think most of us know. And the story comes from the Bible, and it begins when 2 peoples are getting ready for a battle, getting ready to fight each other. And you know, I don't know, what do people fight about? They fight about land. Somebody hurt somebody. Someone's feelings hurt. They were fighting about something. One was on one side of the mountain, one was on the other side of the mountain. And they were kind of waiting. Neither one was willing to be the first to start the battle. And the thing about battle is you can risk things when you do it. You can lose people, you can lose land, you know, somebody's house might get destroyed. So an interesting thing is, in that time, instead of like having a whole army go up against a whole army, they just saved and they'd just have one man, and they'd put their best man up, and the other side would put their best man up, and whoever won, that won the day, and everybody got to go home, right? And less destruction, less people hurt. It's kind of a good idea if you're going to do that. I mean, if you're going to have a battle, that's kind of a good idea. So the other side put up their best guy. Problem was, he was huge. He was like, 4 or 5 men standing up on top of each other. And he had all this weaponry and armor, and most people wouldn't have been able to hold it all up. What he all had is weapons and his javelin and his this and his that. Well, no one on the other side wanted to go up against him. They couldn't find a man who would go up against him. They waited 40 days. And for those 40 days, Goliath was saying, come on, come and get me. What are you doing? I'm here. Let's fight, right? Well, David, a young kid, he was a shepherd. Do you know what a shepherd is?
Somebody who takes care of sheep.
They take care of sheep. And he had a slingshot, and he would protect the sheep all the time. He killed lions and bear all the time, right with the slingshot. So he's like, I can take this guy down. That's what he thought. He's 12. I can take this guy down. So he went to the king and he said, I think I can do it. And I think the king probably tried not to laugh at him because he knew he was serious. And he said, but you're just a boy, and this guy has been doing this for a very long time. He knows what he's doing, and he sounds kind of mad because no one will come out and fight with him. And David explained, I take down lions and bears all the time and protect my flock. Maybe, I don't know if they had bear there. Maybe lions were the only things they had there. And so the king said, okay, if you're going to do it, here's my armor. You can put my armor on. Well, the king was a grown man, and David couldn't hold that armor. It was too heavy for him. He said, I can't fight with this. I can't even walk with it. So he said, I'll do my thing. I'll do what I know how to do. And he went by the water, and he got 5 smooth stones, and he put them in his pouch, and he had his slingshot, and he went to fight Goliath. Well, what do you think Goliath thought when, of all the people that they sent over, David walks out? Young, 12 to 17, or however old he is, David walks out, and Goliath's like, I'm the best and you give me this guy? What's going on? Goliath probably was either more angry or was laughing, right? And so Goliath was ready for an easy fight. You know, he had all his weapons, he had his armor. But David approached him like he knew how, like he was a lion bothering his lambs that he was protecting. And he took his slingshot, and how many stones do you think it took to take Goliath down?
One.
It took one. You did hear the story before. It took him one stone to take down Goliath. Over the years, people have used that story to make a lot of points, and it sees a lot of meaning. But here's the thing that I want you to think about today. I certainly don't want this lesson about fighting with people and getting into fights. That's not what I hope you learn from this. I hope you learn that each of us have gifts. Each of us have things that we feel good about and we know we can do well. And sometimes we're going to be called upon to use our gifts, and we'll be able to do it, and we'll be able to do it well. So as you grow and grow up in your life, remember those things that you can do well and that you feel good about. And maybe when you face what you might think of as giants in your life or difficult times, maybe you'll have the confidence of David to make it through. I hope that may be so for you and for all of us here today. So you can, what we're going to do is the choir's going to come up, and you can stay a little bit while they start singing for you. I don't know what the folks that came with you today have in mind. You can stay for the service. The playroom is open today too. But let's listen to the first part of the choir. And then when I nod, you can go back to your seats or to the playroom, right?
Better place.
time in the service where we can find our breath, find the beating of our heart, that still place within. A time of prayer and meditation. These are the words I was talking about before. That it's amazing that they came from 1968 lecture from James Luther Adams. We live in a time when almost everyone is acutely conscious of the struggle for power that is going on in the international theater and also on the home front. Our situation today is fraught with danger, readily evident in the appearance of the confrontation politics, 1968. Confrontation politics that rejects normal political methods. The authenticity of power, however, is not determined alone by the freedom of all individuals and all groups to participate in the making of social decisions, but also by the quality and purpose of the participation. The authenticity of power is determined by the ends it serves and the means it uses. The truly powerful are those who serve large purposes and can accomplish them. I wish we'd talk about the common good more often these days, right? The authenticity, it serves large purposes and can accomplish them. This kind of fulfillment requires power with, not power over. It simply requires love. Those were JLA's words. So now in 2024, may we know our own authentic power, a gift with ever new, though costing joys. May all with an ounce or a heavy weight of power use it for large purposes, a power with and not a power over. May love remain at the center in these fraught times and in all we do. May it be so. And this is the time also that we'll lift up some of those joys but sorrows that weigh on our hearts, the complex truths we deal with in our world. I'm going to name some. And as I do, Kim will place a stone in the sand to mark them. May we hold at this time the joys, sorrows, and complex truths that rest on our hearts, a stone of concern and care for all those who find themselves in places of open conflict, whether at home or in one of the battles in nations going on right now in the world. And we continue to hold a stone of healing for all of those who've been suffering from colds and crud and respiratory stuff and COVID. It keeps on going, so may all be well soon. And for those here who are trying to get over it, bless you, yes. I just am going to share, Diane was going to be going last week, I believe, for exploratory surgery, and will be going this coming week. So we're thinking about Diane. A stone of care and healing for Steph Fry, who's going to be having cataract surgery this week. And for all those things we don't say out loud to others because we don't want them to be worried, or we don't want them to have to worry about us and have to do anything for us. For all those things you're not saying out loud, a stone of love and care for you. And so at this time in the service, if you'd like to yourself come up and in silence plant a stone, may it be like a seed with tendrils that grow of care and healing and compassion. May it be so, but you can come forward if you'd like to lay a stone in the sand.
The late James Luther Adams, or JLA as he came to be known, was born in Ritzville, Washington in 1901, the son of an itinerant Baptist preacher and farmer. When his father went on his Sunday preaching circuit, the young JLA often went along, taking his violin to accompany the hymns. His childhood experience of fundamentalist Christianity and of farm life deeply influenced him. In his adult years, he was greatly influenced by a trip to Nazi Germany. At age 16, when his father fell seriously ill, JLA dropped out of high school in order to help support the family. Among other jobs, he worked for the Northern Pacific Railroad. In 1920, he entered the University of Minnesota while continuing to work nights in the railroad yards. During his college years, JLA discovered the late Unitarian Reverend John Dietrich, serving in Minneapolis, an acquaintance of Reverend Pat's parents. Reverend Dietrich was a graduate of Franklin and Marshall and Lancaster Theological Seminary. He was ordained in the Reformed Church, but was defrocked as he developed a humanist Unitarian theology. JLA recounted his own transitions from the pre-millenarian fundamentalism, that's in quotes, of his youth, the rejection of all religion, to scientific humanism, as expounded by Reverend Dietrich, then to liberal Christianity. Reverend Pat has suggested, rather than explaining the meaning of pre-millenarian doctrine here, you can Google it if you're so inclined, and it includes mention of the rapture. Adams came to recognize religion as his passion and ministry as his calling. He entered Harvard Divinity School in 1924 to become a Unitarian minister. The entire quest of Adams' professional career may be seen as transformative responses to his childhood religion in two basic respects. First, his quest as a theologian for an examined faith, a faith subject to self-criticism and growth. And second, his quest as an ethicist that seeks for a faith that, quote, takes time seriously, end quote, a faith that seeks to embody its ethical commitments in history.
So let's return to the story of David and Goliath. If you were paying attention, or as you might remember from hearing the story before, as he approached Goliath, David picked up these 5 smooth stones from the river. And over the years, scholars and preachers and teachers have thought about what were those 5 smooth stones that made him successful at slaying Goliath. And Sunday school teachers have wondered as well, and oftentimes there'll be children's Sunday school sermons that will talk about the 5 smooth stones. And it's often preached that one stone is a stone of courage, and another is a stone of confidence, another of faith, and another of trust, because David knew that God was behind him. And the 5th stone was victory, because the battle was for God, and God promised us eternal life. Amen and hallelujah. That's usually the story. You probably didn't think I was going there, but that's usually the way that it's preached, right? So just like sports, God's always on the winning side, yes? Never on the losing side, right? And there's the Reverend Chris Jimerson, an associate minister of the First UU Church of Austin, Texas. Like JLA grew up well, for him it was a little Southern Baptist church. And he remembered the story of David and Goliath. And they told him that the meaning of the story was about how even the small and the weak can prevail against their adversaries with the power of the Lord God Almighty on their side. Yet even as a child, he said, this explanation didn't ring true for him. For him, it seemed like David had prevailed because he had been quite ingenious, hadn't he? By coming up with the first documented example of asymmetrical warfare. He tricked Goliath, right? Goliath thought we were going to have the standard, you have the javelin, I have the javelin, you have the armor, I got the armor. It reminds me of, have you seen the first Raiders of the Lost Ark? There's a scene I hate. I absolutely hate this scene. And the first time I went, I had like preteens with me. And I was so mad at this scene. Because there's a scene when, what's the actor's name? Oh my gosh, how could I forget that? Oh, Harrison Ford. Where Harrison Ford is in a crowd, and there are people of the country there who are there. And this guy comes out with the sword. And Harrison Ford just takes out his pistol and shoots him. I really was stunned. And I thought, they let kids see this movie? What kind of lesson is that? Like that? Well, that's like David. Asymmetrical warfare. In some respects, it's not quite fair. So anyway, it bothered Chris, Reverend Chris as well, that it wasn't because of God, he would say as a kid to himself. It was because he tricked Goliath. It's nothing less than that. And so when Chris shared this story at the end, he said, yes, I was a budding liberal religious geek even back then, questioning, yes, an examined faith. So often, so-called liberal religious folks have problems with the stories of the Bible, not because of what the Bible says, but because of how it's been taught, how it's been interpreted by others. And these lessons are repeated and reinforced so many times that the interpretations start to become more than what the Bible actually says. It's the interpretations that people are believing without the examined faith of reading what's in the Bible, right? And people don't question what might be true and valid, except if you're like some of us, budding liberal religious geeks, who want to make sense of things, who want to understand things. When I went to seminary, who would have thunk that I grew up a Unitarian and I go to seminary and I read the Bible and study, and what I find there is love. The way I had always learned is the Bible was about who we shouldn't love. I didn't realize it was about who we should love, which is everybody, right? That's what I saw in the Bible. In a sermon titled Red Bird in White Snow, the Reverend Gretchen Thompson, she's a Unitarian Universalist minister and chaplain. This sermon was like a long poem. It was absolutely gorgeous. And in the beginning of the sermon, she says, the words shaped by others always sound so confident and polished. Let us pray, someone says. And then, our Father who art in heaven, someone says. Hallowed be thy name and kingdom come, and on and on. It's easier, I guess, she says, to pray along the deep, worn grooves of someone else's piety. Easier to pretend or critique or follow along someone else's motions. But what about this? What about this radical opening up of self to the possibility of currents that might lift one up like an outstretched bird with wings? Just opening yourself up to actually be in the midst of the awe of this world and life we live in. So rather than following along the deep, worn grooves of someone else's piety, someone else's motion, what would it mean to open up ourselves to new possibilities, new points of view? Oh, I never thought about it that way, right? For Unitarian Universalists, what would make it possible for us to be as cocky and confident as a David? What are our 5 smooth stones? Now, today, we have our order of service, and on the cover, the image that you see there is actually, we've been talking about changes to our purposes and principles, which are in the very early pages of your gray hymnal. We have had those same principles and purposes since the 80s. We have not been able to come together and revise them in any way, shape, and form. And some people feel like, don't change them, right? And some people are like, well, maybe we need to outstretch our arms and our wings and think of new possibilities. I think you will find when you go to online and see the changes, it pretty much is like our current principles and purposes. But the thing I want to point out to you is in this diagram of what will be called the core values, are being called the core values, love is at the center, right? So I'm assuming one of your smooth stones like mine might be love, right? But in these times, there's a lot of formidable giants out there. And I guess since 1968, since the year 1, since always, we've had formidable giants as we struggle to live adult lives and to live in this world. Right now, our hearts are breaking over Gaza. How do we respond when that happens and then there's rising anti-Semitism and Islamophobia? Who would think that that's what would happen when there's a conflict so far away? Continuing inequality, whether with people of color or LGBTQ people. Who would have thought that Roe versus Wade is not the law of the land anymore, and that women shouldn't have the right over their own body? Global environmental degradation. A few years ago, everyone knew that's what we should be focused on, and there's so much other stuff going on. How do we focus on that? Religious extremism, fascism, our own personal and family challenges. There be a lot of Goliaths in the world for us, right? Unitarian Universalism, in the way we live and breathe and have our being, doesn't magically slay the giants, right? But it helps us live with integrity. It helps us face our giants. Sometimes maybe even disarm them a little. Those things that threaten us. In the reading that Kim did, she introduced us to James Luther Adams more fully, a social activist, distinguished scholar, author, professor, preeminent 20th century theologian, all those things. And in this essay about the 5 smooth stones, he really wants us to think about these things. And I want to say that for him, when I think about them, they seem like, oh, yada da yada da. That's nice to say, but it's not going to slew my giants, right? But he wants us to put us in the context of his experience in Nazi Germany. What if we couldn't exercise free will? What if we couldn't voluntarily belong to institutions we wanted? What if the press wasn't free? So that the 5 smooth stones in that light that I'm going to share are much bigger when we say we can exercise them. His first stone might not be what would come first to your mind, but remember, he was an academic. And his first stone was, revelation is continuous. It probably was not your first stone. Revelation is continuous. Nothing is complete. Creation is ongoing. And what that means is we are co-creators in creation, right? We're not passive. We are actors in how this world is going to be. We have a part in it. And if we don't do anything, that's not helping. Because what we don't do, creation's going to keep happening and be what it's going to be. If we don't do anything, we're not helping either, right? So for him, he wants folks to remember creation and revelation keeps on going. There's a belief in many traditions, faith traditions, that when God created whatever, the book was closed. And everything is preordained, it's done, you can't do anything about it. But for religious liberals, we believe we have a part in it. And there's responsibility with that, a great responsibility, but that's also a great hope that maybe we can make a difference in our lives, in somebody's life, and in the world. We're rooted in the creative power and possibility of the here and now, that we can make a difference. In the words of Adams, this is the striving of every blade of grass, every work of art, every scientific endeavor, every striving for justice. We understand that, yes, our powers and realities, there are some beyond our control, reality beyond human contrivance, as he said, but we are not outside observers of the magnificent and difficult world that we live in. We participate in the being and freedom of this reality. We have the freedom to abuse, to distort, or petrify this world and those around us, or we can be a part of its transformation for the better. That's the first stone. Co-creators. The second stone is that religious liberals strongly hold that all relations between persons should ideally rest on mutual free consent and not on coercion. That was so important to him after seeing Nazi Germany. Voluntary associations like you can come here in your free will are the power and the magic of a free society. Doing things together between like-minded people with like-minded values, similar values, is a powerful thing, especially when it's taken away from you. He looks to our religious heritage that our Unitarian and Universalist movements grew out of Protestant faiths, out of protests against the powerful, protests against church hierarchy, protests against the hypocrisy of the medieval church and the rulers that were so wedded together. We come together freely, not out of fear of hell or public censure, you better go to church, right? But to be part of a beloved community that seeks lives of truth and meaning and to serve beyond our walls. And there again is that picture on the front of our order of service, that love is at our center. Adams would be so proud to see that picture if he was alive today. The third stone easily follows that religious liberalism affirms the moral obligation to direct our efforts toward the establishment of a just and loving community. That David was not alone when he met Goliath. He knew he had a community behind him, and he felt for them like he felt about his sheep. He was going to protect them, right, from the lions and the bad guys. And he knew they had his back. We aren't servants to the state or a party or to some sort of exclusive devotion or ritual. In the words of Adams, the holy thing in life is the participation in those processes that give body and form to universal justice. The reign of sustaining, commanding, transforming reality is simply the reign of love. a love that fulfills and goes beyond justice, a love that cares for the fullest personal good of all. It seizes and transforms life, bringing us into a new kind of community that provides new channels for love and new structures for justice. The community of justice and love is not an ethereal fellowship, he said, that is above the conflicts and turmoils of the world. It is one that takes shape in the very nature of its history. And you may be surprised that for Adams, the faith of a religious liberal does not rely on rugged individualism. Far from it. Or individual virtue. It isn't all about saving yourself. It isn't all about fixing everything yourself and your own virtue. It's about community, yes? For Adams, the fourth stone is our hope and trust in what we can do together, knowing our own limitations and knowing what we can do together through education, economic and social organization, political organization, intentional communities. Without these, freedom and justice and community are impossible. Just ain't gonna happen. And finally, the fifth stone is an attitude of ultimate optimism. We're never gonna fight the Goliaths if we don't keep up some hope and feel like maybe we can do this thing. In Adam's words, the affirmative answer, which may be heard in the very midst of the doom that threatens like thunder, is that history is a struggle in dead earnest between justice and injustice, looking towards the ultimate victory. Anyone who does not enter into that struggle with the affirmation of love and beauty misses the mark. The Reverend Samaya Oakley of South Fraser Unitarians in British Columbia notes, like David, the Unitarian Universalists do not wear the usual armor. We like to travel light, and we know that we are comfortable, and what we know we're comfortable carrying. We don't want to bring extraneous stuff with us, right? Unitarian Universalists don't go out armed with heavy creeds and doctrines in confronting the Goliaths of the world. Instead, we carry the 5 principles of progressive religion that Adams described, or maybe our 7 principles or our 7 core values, whatever you like to put in your pouch, right? In our back pocket, may we carry the first stone that is our living tradition, where we're learning new truths, growing in knowledge, knowing that revelation is never sealed. And a second stone representing this beloved community, gathering in free will as companions on our life's journey. Don't forget, we all have your back when you're out there in the world. A third stone that calls us to create a just and loving world, to abolish oppression in all its forms. A fourth stone acknowledging that together we can make things happen, more than what any one of us can do alone. A fifth stone that assures us that we have around us all that we need to battle giants, and that in our struggles in the world, even in the midst of doom, we just gotta answer yes. Yes, we're still gonna do this thing and make the world a better place. These 5 smooth stones are indeed a part of your UU theological heritage, whether you knew it or not. We're conceived in this form by a guy living in a particular time from a particular social context. They were written and conceived, his essay came out before our 7 principles were affirmed democratically in the 1980s. But I do want you to think about the 5 smooth stones you carry in your backpack. Maybe you need 14 of them, I don't know. And maybe you have a heavier backpack, whatever works for you, right? What do you need to go out in the world and battle those giants? You might not describe it as a 20th century theologian did. May we say yes to life, that we have a voice and that we can make a difference. Yes to love, yes to compassion, yes to justice. Let us know we're not alone, but are part of a UU congregation and thousands and more across the world. And that we are also part of a great and transforming power and reality that we don't even have names for, and no name could really describe perfectly well. Last Thursday night, a group of us gathered on Zoom to discuss the forming of a justice council, and the ideas were just popping out like crazy, and they keep coming in our emails together, yes? Excited about maybe what we could do together as a community that alone we could not do, to make our world more whole and greener. A lot of people want to make it greener, yes. Alone we might have felt like it was too much, we didn't have enough all by ourselves, but together there's a real energy. May we say yes to life, may we say yes together. And I'm going to share with you one of my favorite quotes. It comes from Dag Hammarskjöld. He says, "To say yes to life is at one and the same time to say yes to oneself. To be free, to be able to stand up and leave everything behind without looking back, to say yes. For all that has been, thanks. To all that shall be, yes. Yes to God, yes to fate, yes to yourself. I don't know who or what put the question. I don't know when it was put. I don't even remember answering. But at some moment, I did answer yes to someone or something. And from that hour, I was certain that existence is meaningful and that therefore my life and self-surrender had a goal. May it be so for you too." So let us sing. Number 1058 in our teal hymnal, "Be Ours a Religion."
Like sunshine gives everywhere its temple space, enshrine the good heart, its creed of truth, its ritual words of love. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple of space, enshrine its good heart, its creed of truth, its ritual words of love.
Now is the time in our service when we will pass the plate and accept your offerings. You may also go to our website to make a donation online. A portion of the offering will be shared this month with the Benchmark program. It was founded to transform the way our community's most vulnerable yet promising population is served, namely the underserved youth. Benchmark's gym, team, and scope of impact has expanded since its founding in 2014, but the core remains the same: to build our underserved youth into community leaders. While the plates are being passed, I'll be making some announcements, and the plates may now be passed. Do look to our weekly email newsletter, the Love Notes, for weekly need-to-knows and events at UUCL, as well as on our Facebook page and website calendar. To sign up for the newsletter, please look at our website or contact our office. First of all, we have a quick announcement from Darcy Pollock, one of our trustees.
Good morning. I'm Darcy Pollock, and first of all, I don't recommend bringing a giant coffee into the sanctuary because I've been nervous the entire time I'm sitting here that I'm going to spill the thing on the carpet. But I brought this along because this fancy coffee drink costs about $5 and is like 430 calories. And then if you get the munchkins, which is a baker's dozen of 10 today, that's another almost $5. So together these two are $10.08. Most of us do something like this, maybe just this one, maybe not both, for 1,000 calories and $10, almost once a week. And as you know, we have a budget deficit this year. It's about $48,000. And we've talked about it before. So we as the board, we're trying to figure out how can we try to close at least some of this gap. If you do the math, if every member, not every household, but every member gave up one fancy coffee drink a week, not a day, but a week, that would close half of our budget gap between now and the end of June, which is the end of our church year. If you give up 2 coffee drinks, or the coffee drink and your munchkin or your muffin, that would close the gap. So if each of us went out and did one of these, we've got on our website under the Give tab, go to that tab, and there's a button there that is Sacrifice a Sip for UUCL, and follow the links there, and it'll take you to swap your latte, and you can give up 1 coffee drink or 2, based on your preference, and help us close the gap. What it will do is it will add to your pledge or create a pledge for you that will just be part of your annual giving. So I don't really drink this stuff, even though I did have to taste both of these on the way in, of course. But what I did was I went through my phone and looked at the apps and podcasts that I subscribe to that I don't really listen to, and I cut out 3 of those, and that was my 2 coffee drinks. So, you know, I always call this like digging in the sofa cushions for loose change when you need to, but we all have something that we can swap out and give it to UUCL, and we can close this gap. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Darcy. In other announcements, dinner go-rounds will be starting up again. And dinner go-rounds, if you don't know, are small groups of UUCL attenders who meet for dinner in people's homes or here in the building. And there has been a link in the Love Notes recently signing to allow you to sign up for a dinner go-round group. There is also sign-up information if you'd like to be part of a discussion group regarding the UUA's common read this year. The book is Repentance and Repair. There also could be a virtual option, and if you would like that option, you may let our Director of Religious Education, Elizabeth Galron, to know about that. There are many special events coming up in February. You may also want to write these down or get out your phone to enter in your calendar. On Saturday, February 10th, don't miss our own Alan Dinnan's concert of romantic piano music. I understand that it's heavily Chopinish. And if you missed Alan's concert earlier this year, he's remarkable. And that Sunday, the 11th, will be the next Yarn Over. Drop in and learn crochet and new stitches for the more experienced. February 18th, a Sunday again, will be the first workshop on the UU Common Read and also a goddess gathering. Wednesday, February 21st, there will be a lecture on electronic cars or electric cars. On Sunday, February 25th, there will be a congregational meeting. Next week, enjoy an all-ages service with an adaptation of Douglas Wood's story, Old Turtle and the Broken Truth, and let Reverend Pat know if you or your child would like the part of Crow, a child, or some humans. Following next week's service, we'll have a town hall on sanctuary updates and the monthly labyrinth walk as well. Today, following the service in Emerson Hall, we will be having a volunteer engagement fair during coffee hour, which is in Emerson right below us. If you have volunteer opportunities for folks, please let them know. And if you're looking for a new place for yourself at UUCL, this is a good day to learn about some of the opportunities that are available. And now, let us join together to read in unison the affirmation of faith, which you will find in the front of the gray hymnal and will appear on the screen as well. First in English and then in Spanish. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ofrenda. Este es nuestro gran pacto, el convivir unidos en paz, el ocupar la verdad en amor, y ayudarnos unos a los otros.
When Kim was giving the announcements, I was going to say you should get your pens out. It's like nothing's going on around here. Did you hear how busy we are, right? There's lots to do. So besides just, if you think volunteering has to do with work, it also has to do with play. And learning and being together, right? So now as we had began together, we had lit the chalice. Let us extinguish our chalice of hope and inspiration and community. One of the greatest students and keeping the light burning around James Luther Adams is the Reverend Dr. George Kimmich Beach, or Kim. And these words for Kim were inspired from James Luther Adams, Kim's own take on them. Because we know that the ultimate issues of life, healing and growth, reconciliation and renewal, cannot be forced, neither by excess of activity nor by tumult of words, we seek the quiet, the resting place of our restless hearts. Because we live with mystery, we trust that which is deeper than we know, which touches our hearts, which steadies us and rekindles our spirits, which finally in faith may not be named, but can be named. That is, the love that has laid hold upon us and will not let us go. Go in love, go in peace, go in joy, and I'll see you downstairs in just a bit.